For years, Jacob's Well has mesmerized people with its stunning beauty, all while hiding dark and dangerous secrets beneath the surface. This captivating but treacherous site has puzzled explorers for decades. Now, thanks to the latest technology, underwater drones are finally uncovering what lies beneath the clear waters. What they found is not only chilling but potentially deadly. The once hidden depths are revealing truths more unsettling than anyone expected. So, brace yourself as we dive into the mysteries of Jacob's Well and uncover the haunting footage captured beneath its surface. Nestled in the heart of Texas Hill Country, near the quiet town of Wimberley, Jacob's Well looks like a beautiful, inviting pool surrounded by limestone rocks. But beneath that tranquil surface is a vast underwater cave system that has claimed lives for decades. To explore its depths without risking human life, researchers sent down an underwater drone equipped with high-resolution cameras and powerful lights. As the drone descended, it captured breathtaking footage of the cave's formations and the eerie calmness of the underwater world. The images showed narrow corridors, silt-covered floors, and chambers that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. In some areas, the drone even came across remnants of past dives, abandoned equipment and personal items left behind by divers who never returned. But what it found in the deeper chambers terrified everyone watching. Shadows flickered across the screen, and unexplained movement suggested something or someone lurked in the dark. The footage was deeply disturbing, raising serious questions about what truly lies beneath Jacob's Well. One calm morning, a team of geologists planned to map the deep cave system inside Jacob's Well. They wanted to explore parts no human had safely reached. Because of the well's terrible history of loss, the team decided it was too dangerous for divers. Instead, they sent a drone named Explorer into the water. Built with special cameras and smart technology, Explorer was designed to navigate tight spaces without getting stuck. Mike Garfield, an experienced drone operator, controlled Explorer. Having worked with drones for years, Mike knew how to handle tricky situations underwater. On that fateful day, locals and journalists gathered to watch. As Mike gently lowered Explorer into the clear water, the drone's camera immediately revealed the stunning clarity inside Jacob's Well. Skillfully, Mike moved Explorer deeper and deeper. The well's rocky walls curved around the narrow water path, and the light from above faded quickly as the drone entered the first chamber, about 30 feet deep. Mike guided Explorer sideways into the second chamber, which sloped downward and stretched ahead. Next came the infamous Birth Canal, a narrow tunnel with a dangerous reputation. The passage was so tight and full of loose gravel that even a small mistake could cause rocks to fall and trap anything inside. Mike carefully slowed Explorer's descent, shining its lights to reveal the gravel slope ahead. After passing the Birth Canal, the drone reached the third chamber, a wider space with large rock formations and room to move more freely. The drone paused as Mike and the team scanned the area. The chamber seemed untouched, almost waiting silently to tell its story. Then Mike pointed Explorer toward the tunnel leading to the fourth chamber, the most feared part of Jacob's Well. As Explorer moved into the tunnel, the team felt a heavy silence. The drone's lights pierced the darkness, showing the tight, rocky path ahead. The walls seemed to close in as the drone carefully moved forward, avoiding loose rocks. Suddenly, Explorer's camera caught something shining in the dim light. Mike stopped and zoomed in. It was a piece of old diving gear left behind by someone who had entered the well long ago. The discovery was shocking. It reminded everyone of the dangers lurking below. The drone continued slowly, deeper into the tunnel. The path grew even narrower, filled with gravel and small rocks that could easily shift. Every move had to be precise. Soon, Explorer reached a spot where the tunnel opened slightly. More remains appeared, including another piece of diving equipment and an old oxygen tank covered in mud and dirt. The tunnel walls were smooth and shiny, as if polished by water over many years. Mike carefully guided Explorer closer to a dark shape in the shadows. As the lights came nearer, they saw something shocking. Human remains trapped between the rocks. The diver wore a torn and worn wetsuit, stained by years underwater. The skeleton was still there. Immediately, Mike broke the silence, calling attention to the discovery. The news shocked everyone watching. What started as a mission to explore the cave had turned into a search for a lost person. The drone stayed near the body, shining light on the scene. The diver's gear was rusty and covered in mud. On the wetsuit, a faded name tag was barely readable. With some effort, the letters came into view. It said, Kent Maupin. Who was Kent, and how did he end up here in Jacob's Well? That brings us to one of the most famous and tragic stories connected to this place. Jacob's Well has a tragic history marked by numerous diving fatalities, especially between the 1960s and 1980s. Many divers were inexperienced or underestimated the complex dangers lurking in its underwater cave system. On the evening of September 9th, two young men, Kent Maupin and Mark Brashear, made a decision that would change everything. Kent was no stranger to diving. Known for his bravery underwater, he had plenty of experience. Mark, on the other hand, was a student at San Jacinto College, eager to learn and embrace new adventures. They bonded over their shared love for exploring beneath the surface. Kent often spoke of Jacob's Well, a mysterious deep water hole near Wimberley. He was fascinated by its dark corners, and especially the dreaded fourth chamber, which many had avoided due to its danger. That chamber was difficult to reach and infamous for claiming lives, but Kent had a strong desire to venture where others had failed. Hearing stories wasn't enough. He wanted to see the well for himself, no matter the risks. Alongside Mark, Kent joined a group of divers from Pasadena. They camped near the well, preparing to enter its depths. As night fell, Kent, Mark, and a few others donned their gear and stepped into the water. They knew the dangers but aimed to reach the last chamber, the one that had scared many before them. For Kent and Mark, it wasn't just about adventure, it was about pushing limits, proving they could face the unknown without fear. Focused and determined, they pulled their tanks through tight spaces, going deeper. They carried no extra lights and had no safety ropes to guide their return. Their lack of preparation showed no sign of expecting trouble. They were simply driven to move forward. Those watching could only wait and hope. After passing the third chamber, there was a small opening leading to another section. Many who ventured there before had never come back. That night, Kent and Mark stood at the entrance, slowly pulling their heavy steel air tanks behind them as they moved deeper into the dark passage. Kent carefully maneuvered his large metal tank backward through the narrow space. Mark followed close behind. Joe, another diver, watched silently, surprised and confused. Nobody had told him they planned to go this far. Mark disappeared into the darkness without looking back. Joe swung his dive light side to side, hoping to catch Mark's eye, but Mark didn't respond. His eyes stayed fixed on his tank as he pulled it deeper into the shadows. Joe knew this was dangerous. Kent and Mark used steel tanks with less air than Joe's aluminum tank. Since they were diving deeper, they would use up their air faster. Feeling his own air running low, Joe hit his tank with a knife to get their attention, but there was no answer. Losing hope, he kept shining his light into the tunnel, hoping Kent and Mark would see it and find their way out. When Joe finally surfaced, the water had turned cloudy and unclear, probably stirred up by shifting stones or panicked divers. His heart sank, knowing Kent and Mark were likely lost. Soon, police officers informed Don Dibble and Paul Battaglia about the incident. Don was a former Navy diver with the highest diving certification. Despite the low chances of finding Kent and Mark alive, Don, Paul, and two others from the volunteer rescue team decided to try. They grabbed gear from Don's dive shop and rushed to the site. There, they found the other divers who had escaped, tired and shaken after fruitless searching. One said he had seen shapes that looked like bodies covered by stones inside the cave. Don looked into the deep, dark hole of Jacob's well. It was nighttime, and the opening seemed even more ominous. He decided it was safer to wait until morning before attempting recovery dives. Quietly, Don spoke to the lost divers, telling them to wait for daylight. The team prepared carefully for the next day. They knew the well was dangerous. Strong currents, narrow spaces, and loose stones made diving challenging. The deepest chamber where Kent and Mark disappeared was the most perilous. Many who entered never returned. Even so, the team was ready to face the risks to bring their friends back. At 10 a.m. the next day, the water was dark and calm. The team arrived again at the well. Two divers began carefully moving gravel blocking the narrow passage. Using small tools called trowels, they worked to clear a path large enough to get through. But instead of making progress, the gravel shifted, making the situation worse. The dirt and stones became unstable and harder to manage. Don heard conflicting opinions about whether a rescue was even possible. After thinking it over, he decided to dive himself. He took Calvin Turner, a game warden, for assistance. They placed extra air tanks at 25 and 75 feet to ensure backup air and laid out safety lines for navigation. Deep inside, they shined their lights upward to check the ceiling of the third chamber, ensuring no bodies were floating unseen above them. The passage where Kent and Mark were last seen was still blocked by gravel and stones. Don checked his air gauge. He had about 1,100 psi left, roughly 10 minutes of breathing at that depth. Carefully, he pushed his head and shoulders into the narrow opening, holding the safety line in one hand and shining his light with the other. Small gravel pieces struck his mask as strong water currents flowed through the tight space. Then, something terrible happened. Don soon realized that recovering the bodies would be impossible without first clearing the thick layer of loose gravel blocking the passage. But before any work could begin, disaster struck. The gravel suddenly shifted, trapping Don at the entrance of the narrow tunnel. The water turned murky, and visibility dropped to zero. His arms were pinned, and he couldn't bang on his tank or signal for help. As he struggled to free himself, his breathing grew rapid, consuming air faster than ever. Don knew his time was running out. He was running low on oxygen and close to passing out. Despite the terrifying situation, Don stayed remarkably calm. He made a grim decision. If he was going to die, he wanted it to be quiet. He wondered how drowning might feel and considered trying to breathe in water or swallowing it to hasten the end. But he refused to panic or lose control. Instead, Don chose to drink the water slowly. He took a few gulps, felt lightheaded, and accepted his fate. Then, something unexpected happened. His body reacted instinctively, jerking violently. This sudden movement freed him just enough to regain some visibility, even though his mask was filled with water. In front of him, Calvin Turner appeared and offered a spare regulator. Don grabbed it and took a deep, grateful breath. But the ordeal wasn't over. Don had swallowed too much air during the dive, and some of it had filled his stomach instead of just his lungs. As he ascended, the decreasing water pressure caused the trapped air inside him to expand painfully. He tried to release the pressure, but couldn't. The pain intensified, growing unbearable. By the time Don reached the surface, his belly was swollen, resembling that of a woman 9 months pregnant. Once out of the water, he ripped the regulator from his mouth and screamed in agony. But the pain didn't stop. For the next 12 hours, Don suffered intensely. Doctors initially suspected an embolism, a condition where air becomes trapped in the lungs as it expands. He was rushed to the Brooke Army Medical Center and placed in a recompression chamber, which mimics underwater pressure to help dissolve dangerous air bubbles in the body. Sadly, the treatment didn't relieve his suffering. Don was later transferred to another hospital where a new doctor ordered X-rays. That's when they discovered the real problem. His stomach wall had ruptured. The injury had caused a serious infection called peritonitis, which can be fatal. It was a miracle Don survived. Doctors said the damage was like having 5 burst appendixes at once. When surgeons opened Don's swollen belly, they described it as cutting into a fully inflated basketball. While Don recovered in the hospital from his severe injuries, the effort to locate the missing divers continued. A new expert was brought in, Don Broad, a 46-year-old diver from Austin. Broad was tough and no-nonsense, having been fascinated by Jacob's well since childhood. Descending into the well, Broad made his way to the entrance of the deepest passage. There he found a dive light still glowing underwater, likely dropped by one of the lost divers. Just beyond it, he noticed a corridor full of gravel. He believed this was where the bodies were trapped. Broad quickly understood the danger Kent and Mark had faced. They must have been digging with their hands or tools, pushing gravel deeper into the cave. Their bravery had placed them in a deadly situation, risking their lives to explore just a few more feet of underwater stone. Broad knew reaching them now was incredibly dangerous. He concluded the only safe way to recover their remains was to remove all the gravel, starting from the top and working downward. 2 days later, help arrived in the form of a white recompression chamber brought on a flatbed truck. It looked like a space capsule and belonged to Schaefer Diving Company. The families of the missing young men had hired the company to carry out the recovery mission. Louis Schaefer, the company's owner, felt hopeful the mission would succeed. He led the first dive himself. As he descended, he was visible from above until he reached about 25 feet. There, when he got a clear view of the final passage's entrance, he shouted, "God Almighty!" shocked by what he saw. Later that day, the diving team began work. They used a large suction hose to pull gravel from 60 feet below, sending it out into a nearby creek. Divers collected bigger stones by hand, placing them into sacks for volunteers to haul up with ropes. But the task was far harder than expected. Every time they made progress, more gravel slid back in. For every foot cleared, another seemed to take its place. Despite the difficulty, the team kept going. They worked long hours under intense pressure. But soon, their funds ran out. When the crew returned after a short break, they discovered the cleared space had nearly filled in again. It was as if all their work had been undone in just 2 days. The job was not only dangerous and exhausting, it now seemed endless. The team continued working, even without pay. Still, it was no use. Another team of divers from Brown and Root was brought in. State Senator Chet Brooks sent them to provide a second opinion. After reviewing the conditions, they agreed with Schaefer's team. The risk was too high. The most reasonable decision was to leave the bodies where they rested and close off the well for good. The terrifying gravel bed had become the greatest hazard in Jacob's well. Who could have imagined such a natural feature would become the deadliest part? 12 days after Kent Maupin and Mark Brashear vanished inside Jacob's well, the search officially ended. Whatever happened in that narrow, shadowy passage remained a mystery. No one could say exactly what went wrong, only that the well had claimed 2 more lives. Friends, family, and fellow divers on the surface were left with deep pain and endless questions. Many wondered why Kent and Mark took such a dangerous risk. What was it in that last chamber that made them keep going? For Kent, it might have been the dream of pushing farther than anyone else. For Mark, perhaps it was loyalty, following a friend he admired on a final dive that tragically became their last. The facts are few, but the sadness lingers. 2 young men went into the water full of hope and were never seen alive again. Kent's story became well known within the diving community and beyond. Seeing his remains after so many years, captured by the underwater drone, was both heartbreaking and important. This was not just a discovery of a body, but a solemn reminder of the risks people take to push boundaries and explore the unknown. The drone mission proved that technology could reach places humans cannot safely go. But it also revealed just how dangerous Jacob's Well truly is. Despite its breathtaking beauty, Jacob's Well remains a place of mystery and loss. The team who sent Explorer down knew they had uncovered something that would stay with them forever. In the days following the discovery, more people learned about Kent Maupin. His name was spoken with respect and sorrow. What was once just a cautionary tale became a real-life reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the water's surface. Jacob's Well still stands today, deep, dark, and holding secrets yet to be fully uncovered. The drone's journey revealed some of those secrets but left many questions unanswered. What exactly happened to Kent? Could anyone ever safely explore the fourth chamber again? These questions echo silently beneath the water. The discovery of Kent's remains was an emotional moment. Jacob's Well holds a powerful story of bravery, loss, and the mystery of the unknown. The drone's flight gave the world a clear picture of this hidden place and the price paid by those who dared to explore it. But Jacob's Well is more than just a dangerous dive site. It's also a place of incredible natural wonder. The well's mouth is about 12 feet wide, leading into a vast underwater cave system stretching deep into the earth. The entrance drops vertically about 30 feet before sloping downward through a series of chambers and narrow tunnels. Historically, Jacob's Well was a powerful artesian spring fed by the massive Trinity Aquifer. Back in 1924, the spring flowed with force, pumping roughly 170 gallons of water every second and shooting up to 6 feet into the air. But times have changed. Excessive groundwater pumping by companies like Aqua Texas, part of Essential Utilities, has caused water levels to drop. As a result, the spring's flow has slowed dramatically and, during droughts, stopped flowing entirely. This happened for the first recorded time in 2000, and again in 2008, 2011, 2013, and 2022. The loss of this vital water source led to serious conservation efforts. In 2010, Hays County purchased 50 acres around Jacob's Well to protect it. The Wimberley Valley Watershed Association added 31 more acres, combining to form an 80-acre protected area called the Westridge Tract. Thanks to these efforts, there is hope Jacob's Well might one day flow again. Still, the mysteries beneath the surface remain. Jacob's Well continues to attract divers from around the world with its crystal-clear waters and mesmerizing beauty. But its deadly history reminds us how deceptive nature can be. The well's structure is complex, starting with a vertical drop into the first chamber about 25 feet deep, followed by a second chamber descending 35 more feet. The third chamber slopes and tightens, ending around 75 feet below the surface. Beyond that lies the infamous fourth chamber, a narrow, twisting space that few have dared to enter and even fewer have returned from. The fourth chamber is notorious for false exits, tight squeezes, and sudden drop-offs that can disorient divers. Many describe it as a trap. One of the most dangerous spots inside is called the Final Squeeze, a narrow passage that has trapped multiple divers over the years. The cave's complexity and hazards require divers to have extensive training, equipment, and strict safety protocols. Even then, the risks are high. Efforts to improve safety include metal grates, restricting access to the most dangerous areas, and tighter regulations for divers. Still, Jacob's Well draws thrill seekers, some ignoring warnings to enter forbidden zones. The drone footage sparked global interest, captivating viewers with eerie, mysterious images. Jacob's Well now ranks among the most dangerous dive sites worldwide, often compared to places like Eagle Nest Sinkhole in Florida and the Temple of Doom in Mexico. These sites share a common theme: stunning but deceptive environments that lure divers into deadly situations. The allure of the unknown and the challenge of conquering nature's obstacles drive many to take risks, sometimes with fatal results. Jacob's Well stands as a powerful reminder of the balance between beauty and danger. Its crystal-clear waters and peaceful setting mask deadly traps hidden below. For now, the well remains a quiet guardian of its secrets, its dark chambers largely untouched. The mouth of Jacob's Well is round, about 12 feet across, leading straight into the depths of the earth through a clear blue pool. Long ago, this opening pushed out powerful streams of water from deep underground, shooting up to 6 feet in the air. Back in 1924, the spring gushed about 170 gallons of water every second, all fed by a massive underground water source called the Trinity Aquifer. But times have changed dramatically. The water no longer bursts out the way it once did. A company named Aqua Texas, part of a larger group called Essential Utilities, has been drawing large amounts of water from the aquifer. This has caused water levels to drop significantly. As a result, the once powerful flow of the spring has slowed to a gentle ripple that barely stirs the surface of the nearby creek. In fact, for the first time in recorded history, Jacob's Well completely stopped flowing in the year 2000. It stopped again in 2008, 2011, 2013, and most recently in 2022. This loss of flow sparked serious efforts to protect and conserve the spring and the surrounding land. In 2010, Hays County took important steps to safeguard the area by purchasing 50 acres around the well. The Wimberley Valley Watershed Association contributed another 31 acres, combining with the county's land to create a protected area called the West Ridge Tract. Together, they manage 80 acres of land dedicated to shielding Jacob's Well from future harm. Thanks to these protective efforts, there is hope that Jacob's Well might one day flow freely again. But the secrets hidden beneath its surface may never fully come to light. Today, Jacob's Well is no longer just a quiet spring in Texas. It has become a symbol of the deep mysteries our planet still holds, and a reminder of how terrifying those mysteries can be when we dare to look too closely. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, click on the next video on your screen to explore more incredible stories just like this one.